Good morning. Welcome to North Point. I trust that in this very chaotic season, that all of you are finding a moment during your day to stop and be still and to reflect on what this season is about. I have a dear friend who has told me that every year he asks God for something new in the season, whether it be Christmas or Easter. And it seems like every year, God brings something new to him. And I have started doing that a little bit, not probably as much as I should, but a little bit. And I have this year, for sure. And what has happened is that God has brought to me different readings and things about Mary and Joseph's journey and what it meant for Mary and Joseph as they went on their way and as they contemplated giving birth to this child that was very definitely a surprise in their life. And so I've been thinking about, what does it look like? What does it look like for us to give birth to Christ in this day and age through our lives? Some of that is a big, huge question mark, isn't it? But I think that there are things that we can consider and think about and wonder and ask God, how is it that I can give birth to your son today? What action can I take that reveals him in my life and thus reveals you, God? So I think the challenge for me, and a challenge that I will just throw out to all of you, is just that. How are you giving birth to Christ this season? And as you think about that, incorporate into it thinking about those days of old when they were on their way. And all at once, a vast number of glorious angels appeared, the very armies of heaven, and they all praised God, singing, "Glory to God in the highest realms of heaven, for there is peace and a good hope given to the sons of men."
Angels we have heard on high, sweetly singing o'er the plains, and the mountains in reply, echoing their joyous songs. Gloria in excelsis Deo, in excelsis Deo.
Shepherds, why this jubilee? Why your joyous strains prolong? What that tidings they may be, which inspire your heavenly song. Come to Bethlehem and see him whose birth the angels sing. Come adore on bended knee, Christ the Lord, the newborn King. In excelsis Deo, gloria.
Let's continue to read together from Luke chapter 2, which picks up right after these angels who were singing glory to God in the highest. When the angels had left them and gone into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, please read out loud. So they hurried off and found Mary and Joseph and the baby who was lying in the manger. But Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. Now let's read together. The shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things they had heard and seen, which were just as they had been told. Let's continue to worship.
Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born a King of angels. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Christ the Lord. Sing choirs of angels, sing in exultation. Oh, come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born a King of angels. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Christ the Lord. Hail, we greet thee, born this happy morning. Jesus, to thee be all glory due. Word of the Father, now in flesh appearing. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Christ, oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Christ the Lord.
This is our third installment of our Advent meditations, and Jeremy and Afton have been sharing with us some of their journey that kind of parallels Mary and Joseph. And this time, we're going to be talking about the apprehension, the realization that things are tough, and how we're going to make it through. And so, for you folks, Blake was very premature. How did you handle that?
Jeremy faced that a little more quickly than I could. He had a better time frame in mind on, he said, let's have everything ready by Thanksgiving, and Blake wasn't due till the end of January. He was right. He was born the week after Thanksgiving. My mom brain couldn't quite fathom that he was going to be that early.
Wow. And we, like she said, we were there for a normal doctor's appointment, so we didn't have any supplies with us or a bag with us or anything. We had talked about it, the ferry ride over there in the morning. Our car was still on Bainbridge Island. We still had a car on Bainbridge Island. So we were not prepared for a hospital stay. The nurse says she's readjusting, gets on her little phone, because they all carry phones. She said it exactly like this. She goes, "Hey, I could use some extra hands in here." It's exactly how she said it, exactly what she said.
Perfectly calm.
And within about 15 seconds, we had about a dozen medical personnel in our room with a portable baby monitor, and they said, "That's it.
They had me on oxygen and everything. Yeah.
And my first response was, "Well, my lunch hasn't come yet."
Practical brain. Yeah. How do you handle that?
They told us right before the C-section that he would not be breathing. That we would, they would have to put him on oxygen, on breathing machine. That there'd be feeding tubes and stuff like that.
I was clearly a little drugged up during a lot of what they were telling me.
This was not an easy 6 weeks. And that journey that Mary and Joseph made to Bethlehem, that wasn't easy either. And it wasn't expected. This was not something that was supposed to happen, but yet here they go, wondering where they're going to sleep, where they're going to stay, what's going to happen. And I loved Mary's response that kind of ran through this whole period of their lives. And just like for you folks, nothing is impossible with God. I pray that whatever impossibilities you're facing in the next few weeks and maybe even the next few years, that you will know that the God of the impossible is with you, that he will bring you through it, that he will be faithful. And I pray that you would experience that this Christmas season.
Just like the Kramers were wondering what would be next after hearing this news of the baby that was coming sooner than they expected, Mary also had her share of questions after hearing about the baby that was to be born. We see in Luke chapter 1, she says, "How will this be? I'm a virgin." And again, we hear that phrase that Joel mentioned there, "For nothing will be impossible with God," the angel said to Mary. I'd like to take a few moments and at home just push pause on the recording here and think about, or if you're with someone else, take one or maybe both of these questions and answer them. First of all, when have you seen God do something that you felt was impossible? When have you seen God do something you felt was impossible? And then the second question is, what's something you're facing right now that feels impossible? Push pause, take a few moments, think about it, or again, talk about it if you're with someone else, and then we'll come back, unpause, and I'll lead us in prayer. Isaiah 55 provides us with a great reminder of the impossible ways God works, as well as the unexpected nature of those. Isaiah 55, verse 8 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." That whole word apprehension that Joel mentioned as he was reflecting with the Kramers is one that's stuck out to me. Apprehension can mean several different things, but that sense of not understanding something that's going on is one of the meanings that I found myself wondering about, praying about. and realizing that for a God who works in ways that are so much beyond what we would think, apprehension would be a normal feeling as we encounter situations that are, needing the God who can do the impossible. And then I went back to Isaiah 55. Before we go into prayer, hear these encouragements that speak to, the type of interactions God desires to have with us, as well as who God is in the midst of those times. Isaiah 55:3 says, "Incline your ear and come, listen to me. Hear that your soul may live, and I will make with you an everlasting covenant, my steadfast, sure love." And then verse 6 and 7, "Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his ways, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to the Lord, that God may have compassion on him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon." In light of that, let's pray. God, thank you that as we look back in our lives of all that's happened, we can see that you are a God whose steadfast love has surrounded us, even to this very day in this moment as we prayed. Times we didn't realize, and times where it led us like those angels to say, "Glory to you, God, for who you are, what you've done, what you are doing right now in our lives." It's with that gratitude that we come before you again in prayer, both praising you for what you've done even in this past week, as well as lifting to you the cares and concerns that are on our hearts. God, we recognize that again this week we've been a people who, have been distracted by other things around us, have felt that anxiety as we look on the world around us, the situations right before us, the events in people's lives that we care so much about. And God, we admit that we are a people that need you. We need your forgiveness for ways where we've strayed. Thank you that before we say that, you are ready to, as we just read, pardon abundantly. And not only that, but speak to us. As we seek you, God, thank you that we can hear your heart. We can know your will for the people and situations right around us. And we can know for those times where it's not abundantly clear what we should do, that we can wait upon you, assured of your love, assured of your action in the world around us, that you are near, you are with us with whatever we are facing. So God, we take some time to not only receive your forgiveness, but we entrust ourselves again in this day to you. We entrust the people that are on our hearts, our family, our friends, people struggling, people lonely, people confused, people sick and hurting. We lift them to you, the God of steadfast love. We also lift our country. We lift other places like South Africa and in India. We lift the leaders in those countries. We lift those people who are serving in quiet, behind-the-scenes ways. And we ask, God, that you would open their eyes to you, your nearness with them, whatever they're facing, whatever decisions are before them. And God, would you grant them, like we desire, that same mercy and grace to listen to you, to hear you, to find you in those places, in those situations. Bless those leaders that we've partnered with in South Africa. Bless Anita and others there in India. And would you bless and guide our leaders in this country, whether it be our national leaders or here at the state level. God, thank you that we can look to you in these ways. God, we commit ourselves again in this day to seek you, to listen to you in this upcoming week and all that you have before us. We commit to not looking to our own ways, but looking to you and your will for those situations and relationships before us. And God, would you open our eyes to even just glimpses of how you're at work, that we might join with those angels, saying, "Glory to you, God. Glory to you." We pray all these things in the name of Jesus and for your glory. Amen.
Emmanuel, Emmanuel, the Son of God, come down to earth. Emmanuel, eternal God, an infant child, Emmanuel. Alleluia, our God dwells with us. Alleluia, his Son born to us. Alleluia, in his presence we bow down. Alleluia, we adore him at his birth. Alleluia, he is peace to earth. Alleluia, all creation praise his name. Emmanuel, Emmanuel, the Son of God, come down to earth. Emmanuel, 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 eternal God, come down to earth. Emmanuel.
Good morning. A long time ago, there was a talk show host whose name was Johnny Carson. He had a sidekick, Ed McMahon. And I don't know how many of you remember that, or perhaps you've seen it on a YouTube video. But at the beginning of each one of his shows, Ed McMahon would come out and start to pump up the audience and get them ready for Johnny to come on and fill them with expectation of what a fun time this next hour or so was going to be. And he always, just before Johnny came out, would say, "And here's Johnny." Well, Jesus sort of had his own Ed McMahon, a lot classier and a lot more profound. His name was John the Baptist. In those days, John the Baptist came, preaching in the wilderness of Judea and saying, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near." This is he who was spoken of through the prophet Isaiah, a voice of one calling in the wilderness, "Prepare the way for the Lord, make straight paths for him." But the nation of Israel was more interested in religion and revolution than repentance. Jewish leaders were preoccupied with their maze of self-righteous legalism, and Jewish rebels with clearing the Roman roads than with straightening out the crooked paths they both had laid down for the people to follow. They had learned little from their history. You see, the history of Israel is a story of bondage and freedom. A centuries-long cycle of slavery, servitude, and the constant threat of military invasion, followed by the coming of a hero leader, leading them to the promised land. Egypt led to Moses and led to Canaan. The Philistines led to David and led to the Davidic kingdom. The Babylonians led to Ezra and then back to Jerusalem. And finally, we come to first century Israel. Again, the nation longed for a hero to rescue them, to rid them of hated Roman rule. Where was the anointed one, they cried. Who will finally free us from foreign domination? Who will once and for all restore the glory of David's kingdom? This was the Messiah they expected. Centuries of reading the prophecies of Isaiah, written 700 years before, had created a powerful vision of who he would be and what he would do. I want you to turn to Isaiah. We're going to be spending a lot of time in Isaiah. So go ahead and open up your Bibles. We'll start with Isaiah 40. We'll read Isaiah 41 through 5. Just kind of read along with me. Comfort, comfort, my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and proclaim to her that her hard service has been completed, that her sin has been paid for, that she has received from the Lord's hand double for all her sins. A voice of one calling, and this was the quote that John the Baptist used. In the wilderness, prepare the way for the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be raised up, and every mountain and hill be made low. The rough ground shall become level, and the rugged places a plain. And the glory of the Lord will be revealed, and all people will see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. Then flip a couple of pages over to Isaiah 61, and we'll read the first 3 verses. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. Jesus quoted from this. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn and provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendor. In the years leading up to Christ's birth, numerous would-be messiahs came on the scene. They led heroic but ultimately futile attempts that only briefly disturbed Pax Romana. All ended in defeat and disillusionment, and all concluded with that most cruel Roman tool of subjugation, crucifixion. The Sanhedrin, the rulers of the nation, hated the rebels because rebels threatened the Sanhedrin's power. They had made a sort of pact with the Romans. The Romans could rule as ruthlessly as they pleased over all secular and military matters, while the Sanhedrin retained the right to control the sacred life of the people, placing on their backs harsh religious rules. that no one could possibly keep. Israel, both rebels and rabbis, tragically focused only on who they thought the Messiah should be. They did not accept the full picture Isaiah painted with his prophecies. Their vision of a hero Messiah left out other less heroic descriptions of what the anointed one would be like. Flip back just a few pages to Isaiah 53, again, 1 through 3. Isaiah 53, 1 through 3. Who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? He grew up before him like a tender shoot and like a root out of dry ground. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain. Like one from whom people hide their faces, he was despised, and we held him in low esteem. So then, what did first century Israel expect of a Messiah? A mighty warrior who would lead them to throw off Roman rule, a powerful priest who would perform great feats of healing, signs, and wonders, a new king who would restore the Davidic kingdom forever. What did they get? A helpless baby, a foreign refugee hiding in Egypt, a tradesman eking out a living in an inconsequential village in northern Palestine, an itinerant rabbi full of heretical ideas and homespun homilies. Worse, an unclean sinner who hung out with unclean lepers, tax collectors, prostitutes, and party animals, otherwise known as gluttons. What happened? Why was this infant born 2,000 years ago such an unexpected gift? Because he didn't meet their expectations. Even though God had given them everything they needed to expect exactly what Jesus would be, the Messiah, what gives? The answer may lie in the nature of expectation. When I was about 18, I wrote a poem. I can't remember it, and I've lost it, but I do remember the main line, the reason I wrote the poem. And that line is, "Great expectations are my downfall, and simple acceptance is the key." I am still trying to learn that. This is a working definition of expectation. Our imagination, thoughts, and feelings projected into the future. Expectations are powerful things. They give impetus and energy to remarkable achievement and visionary leadership. But often, perhaps more often than not, they limit us in profound ways. They blind us to opportunity and tempt us to be manipulative in our relationships. We end up bitter and brittle when people and circumstances fail to meet our great expectations. Now, we all have expectations. They are a vital part of God's gift to us of intellectual and spiritual life. They're both positive and negative. Few people will spend the money and go through the trouble of traveling to Hawaii if they don't expect to have a good time there. That'd be silly. I love going there and swimming with the turtles and snorkeling and eating all that good fruit. I expect to have a good time. But we've all experienced the disappointment of a lousy vacation, been unhappy with the food in a favorite restaurant, felt ripped off by a hyped movie, been bummed out on a date that failed to meet our rosy expectations. This happens because our knowledge is so limited, our experiences is so inadequate. Our judgment is so poor that we can't possibly get it right every time. So the real problem arises when our expectations are not met. We become upset at ourselves, at our family and our friends, and at circumstances beyond our control. In the process, I, always make things worse. We try to force others to conform to our idea of what they should be. We grow impatient when circumstances don't unfold the way we expect. Ironically, we fail to make the best of things because, after all, for us, only the best will do. Anything else is unacceptable, right? We deserve better. Yes? Now, the flip side of this coin are negative expectations. When we allow negative expectations to influence our choices, we shut ourselves off from people and experience that might be enjoyable, and even more importantly, might allow us to discover something wonderful about God and His love for us and others. How many delicious dishes have we passed up because we didn't expect that lobster bisque to be any good, that challenging book to actually change our way of thinking, that demanding job to be greatly fulfilling, that new neighbor to be friendly. Patty Shirley had expected to marry someone tall, dark, and handsome. When I remind her that 1 out of 3 isn't bad, she says, yeah, but why couldn't it have been handsome instead of tall? I didn't meet expectations. Almost none of us ever do. I have my own tale of an unexpected event. I don't know about you, but I like to get up, off the couch, and I go to the refrigerator. This happens somewhere often between 8 and 10 o'clock at night, the worst possible time, but nevertheless. And I go to the refrigerator and I open it up, okay? And I don't know, I expect there to be something. About the first 3 times, there's nothing there. The 4th time, there is. And this one time, there it was. I saw it. It was a cheesecake. A cheesecake. I wonder what Patty had made that for. I better check to see if it's any good. So I took a knife out and sliced a piece, and with great expectation, I took a bite. It was pesto cheesecake. Now, it was a wonderful cheesecake. I just didn't know it was pesto. I didn't expect that. And I spit it out. Patty, what'd you do? And she says, oh, that's pesto cheesecake. We're going to put it out and slice it thinly and put it on crackers with a little bit of wine. A wonderful thing. I didn't expect it. I spit it out of my mouth. I think sometimes that's our experience. Our expectations are so unreliable. So, what's a follower of Christ to do? Hope. Such a simple word and so life-changing. Hope in God. A little definition I have, it'll be up on the screen. Hope in God provides mankind with a blueprint with which to successfully navigate our present circumstances and to prepare ourselves for the future. Christian hope is diametrically different than the limited vision that our imaginations and our expectations can create. Because instead of being built on our thoughts and feelings, our best hope, our hope in God, is based on the foundation of His Word. You see, the hope we have in God is built on His revealed thoughts and feelings toward us. He loves us. He cares for us. We are His inheritance. And the wonderful thing about His thoughts and feelings projected into our lives is that He has the power and authority to fulfill that hope. Things out of our control are in His. Jeremiah captures this so beautifully. Jeremiah 29, we probably all know it. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. See, we do not hope that God loves us. We live in God's everlasting love. There's a big difference. We do not hope for God to provide for us. We live every day by God's promised provision. We do not hope God will free us from our sins. We freely live by His promise to forgive. This is not wishful thinking. This is confident living. Mary, the mother of Jesus, had this kind of hope. She could not have known what to expect in her future, how God would provide for the crazy, wild adventure she and Joseph were beginning. Almost every circumstance in her life should have led her to the inevitable conclusion that her future was going to be a disaster. She was an unwed mother at a time when that could have led to her death, or at the very least, to being disgraced and ostracized. If it were not for God's direct intervention, her future husband would have put her quietly away. Not exactly the way to start a marriage. Her country had been invaded by a foreign power and was currently under Roman martial law. Her financial outlook was not great, and she would presently learn that she would have to set out on an arduous journey during her last month of pregnancy. Not fun, not great. But Mary somehow managed to put her hope in God. She refused to be controlled by her own thoughts and feelings about what lay ahead. Instead, she wrote a song. And the lyric goes something like this. And this is Luke 1, 46 through 55. My soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. For He has been mindful of the humble state of His servant. From now on, all generations will call me blessed, for the Mighty One has done great things for me. Holy is His name. His mercy extends to those who fear Him from generation to generation. He has performed mighty deeds with His arm. He has scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. He has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things. He has sent the rich away empty. He has helped His servant Israel, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and to his descendants forever, just as He promised our ancestors. What an unexpected gift to find hope and joy smack dab in the middle of a time of despair and disruption, to sing a song of praise and promise while faced with personal hardship and a future completely out of her control. First century Israel got it wrong, and so, too often, do 21st century followers of Christ. We base our decisions on our thoughts and feelings about the future, just like they did. Rather than tempering our expectations with hope in God, we operate out of fear and self-preservation. How many opportunities to give generously have we missed because we haven't relied on God's promise to give us each day our daily bread? How much joy have we failed to experience because of our feelings of inadequacy, struggling to trust that with God, nothing is impossible? One of God's greatest unexpected gifts was the Christ child, God's Son, the hope of all who trust him. He is the story of Christmas. He is the hope of nations, of the whole displaced, disgraced, desperate thing we call the human race. Let's face the coming year full of that hope. Imagine what would happen if we didn't trust our ability to anticipate the future, but left ourselves open to receive his unexpected gifts. Let's rely on what God has promised in his word and sing, along with Mary, "My soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God, my Savior." Father, I thank you for filling us with hope. We admit that we try to navigate our lives based on the limited information that we have. And so often, instead of relying on what you have promised, we rely on our own abilities and our own thoughts and our own feelings. I thank you, Father, that your word provides an unshakable foundation for what to expect in our life. We don't know whether our health will be good or perhaps an accident will recur or we'll lose our job. We don't know so many things, but we know, Father, that you are our healer, that you will provide food and shelter, clothing. That, Lord, you are the one that gives us all we need for life. We thank you. Help us as we reorient our thinking to your hope. In the name of the hope of mankind, Jesus Christ. Amen.
My name is Sherry. I'm a longtime member of this community and of North Point. And a little bit of a history. The existing building started out as a 520 square foot old farmhouse. The garage in the back was added later, and it was converted about 20 years ago into a meeting space. My daughter was part of a group from the high school that would come over and meet there after school, and it eventually evolved into a place where they felt comfortable coming and doing homework, and just later developed into a music group. And they got fed there. They got fresh chocolate chip cookies after school, and it's just meant to be a place for youth.
My name is Darla Muya, and I'm the Children's Ministry Director here at North Point. And I am so excited about what is going to be happening in the future with our student center that's coming. North Point has had a long history of wanting to reach out to students. We're in a great location, and I really feel like the student center is just another milestone in our mission to reach out to students and their families. So this is a very exciting time for us.
Hi, my name is Bart Lesko. I'm the ministry director and also a parent of students at North Kitsap High School and Paulsbo Middle School. What's exciting to us as West Sound Youth for Christ is that we are partnering with a church with a vision that's very similar to ours. We want to go where students are at. And North Point put themselves in a place where they could be where students are at. With several hundred students walking across their front doors every day, it became a natural partnership for West Sound to be able to start a relationship with North Point, so that when those students walk across the street, after we build a relationship with them on campus, we have a place to meet them off campus, a place that they see every day, that they walk past every day, a place that's been designed to be welcome for them so that they can be cared for, they can feel safe, and they can hear the gospel and respond. So we're very excited about it, and we're just so grateful for North Point in this relationship.
As you can see from the outside, we've cleaned everything up and brought it all up to watertight, but let's walk inside and I'll give you a tour of what we're doing. As we come into the building, we're moving into the entry and what is going to be the new study hall. As we progress down this way, there'll be benches along the walls, new lighting through here, and cubby holes for kids to be able to study after school. As we step down into the main entry hall, this is going to be set up for more of the teaching and entertaining. There'll be a stage over to the left-hand side, seating all around, which moves us to a point where we're coming into where the kids can learn, and they feel comfortable in this area. As we move down this way, this is going to be the new dining room. There'll be seating around here for having a lunch or snack. There'll be a small kitchenette over here to the left, and then obviously 2 new bathrooms that move back into this way, boys and girls. The main reason that I became involved in this program was not so much for the church and not so much for Youth for Christ, but the idea of reaching across the street and bringing those kids into an area where they can learn. And I'm not just talking about learning the academic side of life, but learning what it takes to create a career. I would like to bring together people from the plumbing trade, from the electrical trade, a retired judge, an attorney, a physician. And I'd like to bring them in here so they could hear these people talk and tell their stories of why they do what they did for their vocations or their occupations, but also the things that it took to get along the way and where they've ended up. In doing that, I think we can broaden the horizons with these children and also give them a better idea of what it is to be an adult.
What's up, North Point? This is Tom Shields, and I'm thrilled that we are going to have this youth center as part of our community. Claire and I have 3 kids that are going to be taking advantage of this building. It's going to be fun, safe, welcoming, and we are thrilled that we get to be a part of it. I had a neighbor that came up to North Point the other day, and we were looking around, and he said, "What is going on with this building?" And I told him. I gave him the vision, and he was super pumped. What was great about that is he's in high school, so I hope he gets a chance to take advantage of what we're building here. So I hope we all come together, take our time, talents, and skills, and make this just one great community asset.
2020 is almost over, and I think for a lot of people that's a good thing. It's been a year of challenges, and for many people it's been a year of some real sadness and some disappointment. But despite the problems of this year, despite the challenges and the sadness, God is really at work here in Poulsbo, and he's at work here at North Point. And one of the things that has been very exciting for us is how some of our programs have grown, especially with the kids in the student ministries. Our Sunday school has grown, and we have been able to reach more families and help them to live out the gospel than before. Our student ministries has grown, and we're even reaching kids who don't belong to a family that goes to church regularly. And very exciting, our space has grown, and we are nearing the completion of the Student Ministry Center here. So all of these things are really wonderful, and they're on track, and we're very, very grateful. But I mostly wanted to say thank you. Thank you to all of you who helped out in doing this. Many of you have volunteered hours of work for the work and to help complete the vision that we have. I really didn't know what I was saying there. Okay. Okay, I think I have to start from the top, right?
No.
No?
You can start from what I really want to say is thank you.
Okay. All right. What I really want to say is thank you. There are so many of you who have volunteered your time in helping to get these projects done, especially for the Student Center. There are many of you that have spent time praying for us and for our ministry. And there are also many of you who have been very generous in helping us to fulfill the vision that we believe God has given us to the Paulsbo area. So I just wanted to say thank you for all of that. And if you look at our budget, you can also see that we would like to finish the year strong as well. And so that you... I didn't want to read this, and that's the problem.
Maybe just pick up from...
No, let me just go do the whole thing over again. Because I think... Is it really bad if I look down? No. Okay. Okay. See, I only like to do this one time, Mike. This is why. Okay. 2020 is almost over. And I think for many people, that's a good thing. It's been a year of challenges. It's been a year of sadness and disappointment. But yet, in spite of the challenges and this sadness, God is at work. He's working here in Paulsbo, and he's working here at North Point. This is evidenced by a lot of the good things that have been going on with our children's ministries and our student ministries. Our Sunday school has grown, and we've been able to reach out to families and help them to live out the gospel in their lives each day. Our student ministries have grown, and we are reaching more kids than we have before, and many of them do not even belong to families that attend church regularly. And also, most importantly, our space is growing, and the student center is almost finished, which has been very, very exciting for everyone. But I really wanted to say thank you to all of you who have helped so much in making these things happen. Many of you have been very generous with your time in volunteering, especially with some of the demolition and some of the groundwork. Many of you have prayed faithfully for us, and God is blessing those prayers. And especially many of you have been very generous with your offerings and your finances, and we are so grateful. In fact, I'm very humbled to see that you too believe that God can provide for us, even in a year of COVID, and you've been so generous in helping us to accomplish our vision for ministry to the kids across the street, at the high school, and at the middle school. So I'm sure you've noticed the budget information, and I really hope that we can finish the year strong, because we really want 2021 to be a great year for reaching out into the community. But most of all, I really hope that this year we'll remember that this was the year that God helped us as we stepped out in faith to fulfill the ministry that he had given us from many years ago, that we would be a light to Paulsbo and a light to the students that we want to reach. Thank you.
Isn't that encouraging to hear what's going on, not just with the youth center, but people whose hearts are stirred up to reach out and to serve other people, to meet with students and children and help them come to a knowledge, a relationship with God, to grow in that relationship with God. I love what's already happening. I can't wait to see what's going to happen in the years ahead. I invite you to come hear other great news tonight at 5 o'clock at our congregational meeting. If you haven't seen that Zoom link, you can also find it on our website. But please join us for the congregational meeting, where we'll be not only approving a budget, but saying yes to God in light of what he's done, and then for what lies ahead. I love that verse that Joel closed with, actually comes from Luke chapter 1. And it highlights an important discipline. It's the discipline of looking back, seeing what God has done, and taking time to celebrate, to reflect on what God has done. We see that in Mary, who we're told was pondering all these things in her heart. But prior to that is the verse that Joel had mentioned as well. Mary, who wasn't sure what was going to happen after visiting with Elizabeth, after she realized what God had done in Elizabeth's life and what God was about to do in her life, she took time. there was this important discipline of reflecting and celebrating on what God had said and what God was going to do. Verse 46, and Mary said, "My soul magnifies the Lord. My spirit rejoices in God my Savior, for he has looked on the humble estate of his servant. For behold, from now on all generations are going to call me blessed. For he who is mighty has done great things for me, and holy is his name." And so, as God is continually with us in this week to come, be on the lookout for those holy ways that God's going to work. And as you see them, give a little space and time. They might be that unexpected pesto cheesecake type moment. Give some space and time to say, wait a minute, what is God doing here? Reflect. And then, because if it is truly God, you'll be able to rejoice and celebrate the God who loves you and is continually showing up in unexpected and wonderful ways. God bless you as you seek him, follow him, trust him in this week ahead.